Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of It Starts With You. I'm the host, Anna Yoo, here with Scott Clary, who is also a host of a top-rated podcast called Success Story and has been in the podcast game for over 6 years. We were interested in learning more about how he keeps his mental clarity while keeping up such high energy, a stable relationship, and a strong podcast community with over 1 million followers. Let's get started. Tell us more about your podcast.
This is one of the best career decisions I've ever made to start a podcast, as we're both in the same game. Over the past 6 years, the podcast has grown considerably. It's connected me to some of the most incredible people in the world. It's almost impossible for it to fail. And I truly believe that, because not many people who have stuck at one thing for an extended period of time have actually failed at that thing. In my mind, why did I do a podcast? Because it was a content medium that I enjoyed. So I don't enjoy dancing on TikTok. I don't enjoy a lot of different types of social media, but some people love that, not me. So for me, if I wanted to stay in the game long enough, I had to find a content medium that I would enjoy, because if I enjoy it, then it's not work for me. So that's why I chose podcasting, because it was educational. When I sit down with people, I learn so much. And if I learn a lot, then that means that hopefully the audience is learning a lot too. But that's really why I started it. And that's why I chose podcasting. And fast forward, now that's probably been one of the better decisions I made in my life in terms of career.
So can you tell me a little bit more about the content of your podcast?
So the podcast is called Success Story, and the content has evolved over time. When I first started my show, I was interested in interviewing basically people who could teach me stuff. So at the time, I was leading sales and marketing in a company. I was learning every sales and marketing tactic. I was interviewing CROs and CEOs and founders and VP of sales and marketing, and that to me was interesting. And then as I progressed in my own life, I realized that, okay, this is useful for my career. It's useful to learn how to sell and market, very useful skills, but it's not everything. Success is more than just the tactics. When you're building a business from scratch, there's a lot of other things that allow you to be successful. Some of those things include your physical health, your mental health, your relationships, mindset, sometimes even spirituality. There's a lot of different components that allow somebody to be a balanced and successful person, and basically not burn out, really. Because if you have a really traumatic home life with your partner, or if you are overweight and you feel like your energy starts to dip every single day because you're not in good health, or if you get brain fog every time you try and solve a problem, you are not going to be a successful entrepreneur. So as I started to realize all the different things that some of them I just mentioned were contributing to my success, I realized that these are important conversations to have, because at the end of the day, everyone who is successful is not just figured out how to play business, they figured out how to succeed across all domains in life. So my content's evolved with how I've evolved as a human and how I've paid attention to other things that help contribute to my success. And I think that's a great journey a creator can go on if they just naturally tie their content into things that they're curious about. Now, I want to just add on one more thought to that point. It's good to be mirroring your own lived experience in your content to a degree. Yes, 90% of your content can maybe be niched down because of the business that you've built and you want to accomplish a business objective. But 5 to 10% of your content should always include your own lived experience. Because when you include your own lived experience in your content with tough stuff that's happened in your business, what happens is two things. First of all, it humanizes you to your actual guests. So now they feel like they can be more vulnerable because you were just a little bit vulnerable. It humanizes you to your audience. So not only are you humanizing and building a better rapport with the person you're sitting in front of, now your audience, who has unlimited options of podcasts, is going to listen to yours, because you're the one podcast where I actually feel like I know who the host is. Even though 90% of it is technical and highly complex, I like that particular host versus any of the other hundreds of podcasts. And I would say the last benefit, outside of building rapport with your audience and your guest, if you are a very niche down creator, and podcasting in particular, and you do build that rapport with your guest, from a commercial perspective, there's always a chance they can be a customer. So for that particular reason, I always recommend, as do I, bring in some of your own life into the show.
So basically, put in some of your life
Always.
experiences.
I always, when someone's, oh, this is a difficult thing that happened to me, I'll talk about past relationships that haven't been great for my business. Just like small little comments go a massive way in building rapport with somebody. Because how we'd have a conversation if we were just like hanging out, just grabbing a coffee between two friends, it would include your life.
Yeah.
That's how you build a connection with somebody. It's how you're a human. And I think that's the mark of a good podcaster. The more comfortable they are, like bringing themselves into the podcast. Because anybody who I know who has been in this game long enough, and I think of like greats, I think like whether or not you like a Joe Rogan or you like a Tim Ferriss or you like, they about their life. Not because someone's interviewing them. They're usually the ones doing the interviewing, but you know about their life because they feel comfortable bringing it in. And that is why they have this cult-like following, because people feel like they know them. And the more you hold back your personal, I think the more the audience feels like you're replaceable.
I think that's great insight, though. I agree with that.
Like, I mean, you do relationship podcasts, right? Do you notice when somebody is like opening up, if you talk about like a story that's happened in your life, do you feel like they go deeper?
Yeah.
I think so.
And especially if they have a lot more to say, they keep on talking.
Exactly.
They don't stop talking.
Exactly.
Let me get more coffee.
Exactly. That's a good thing. Listen, if somebody's like going in and they're telling a story and it's meaningful to them and they feel like you're not just listening to ask the next question, but you're listening because you actually care about the human you're speaking to, I think it's a sign of a good interview.
Yeah. So, in relation to that, like, can you share a moment when not listening nearly cost you a key relationship?
Let me think. I'm pretty sure not listening has cost me relationships. Like real, not like business relationships, like not listening has cost me, like I'm dating somebody and they're like no longer around. Every single day, we are distracted by something and we don't actually listen to something that's important. And it could be because, again, this is why there's so many important things outside of business. It could be because you had a fight at home, or you're just tired because your diet's off and you don't hear what they're saying. And a lot of us just default to like running through a script in most areas of our life because we get comfortable. So sales calls are no different. And if you're off and you don't listen, I would say that almost every sale that I've lost over my career, and I've made a lot of money, but I've lost a lot of deals. If you think about anybody who is in sales will say that if you have a 20% closing rate, that's a good ratio. Meaning if somebody wants to buy your product and you close 20% of them, that's a good ratio.
Yeah.
That means that I've lost 80% of the people that I've ever spoken to buy my product, which is acceptable industry standard. So if I've lost 80% of the people that I've ever sold a product to, there are thousands of conversations where I haven't listened to something they've said and I haven't paid attention to it and it's lost me money or it's lost me a client. Thank God, not thousands of ex-girlfriends, thousands of clients. But the point is, every day I've lost deals this week, probably because I didn't listen to something that they said on the call. So listening, communication, and architecting an environment where you are with it, where you are paying attention, where your energy levels are in the appropriate spot. So when you do chat with somebody or you do jump on a sales call or you do go on a date, you are 100% present and there. I think it's very important. And I think that we live in a world of distraction. And if we don't pay attention to our physical health, mental health, and showing up at 110% while simultaneously being bombarded by notifications, social media, all this stuff, it's very easy to not be present and to be distracted and to not listen and to lose out on a lot of life opportunity because of that.
So, what's the difference between truly hearing and understanding in your experience?
I think that to truly understand somebody, you have to be empathetic to what they're trying to accomplish, and you have to remove yourself from the equation. But when you have an ego and you go into a conversation or a negotiation or a conversation with a loved one or a conversation with a customer, and you're only thinking about serving yourself, it's very hard. And if all you're thinking about is, I need to make more money, or I want to get out of the situation because I don't like this conversation, that's hearing just to hear. It's like you're not really respecting the other person. So when you actually care about the other person, you're empathetic to their needs, that's when you can understand. It's like cliche, if you walk a mile in their shoes and understanding where they're coming from. And in my opinion, that's the true definition of understanding. It's completely removing your ego and yourself from the outcome of the equation. And only then can you actually hopefully see where they're coming from and what they want to communicate.
Do you think, can you give us like an example of?
I feel like this is like an EQ job interview. Give me an example of when you communicated properly with somebody. I'll tell a story that I don't talk about because it's very personal. So someone in my family currently has a cancer scare and they'll be fine. But when they first brought this scare up, I think at least with me, my immediate reaction is to try and figure out a solution. So when they're telling me all the things they're going through with the doctors, and there's going to have to be chemo and there's drugs, and I'm like, I'm researching on ChatGPT, and I'm like, okay, how do I cure cancer? Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm the kind of person that if somebody comes to me with a problem, I'm like, let me figure out a solution. And it's not like I have bad intention. I'm trying to see, okay, is there things you can do? What is this process? How does it affect your health? How does it affect everything? And I think that I learned really quickly that this person doesn't want me to try and fix everything that they're going through. They just want to be heard because they're stressed out and talking about their situation. It feels good to have somebody truly listen to you. And I think that sometimes, even if our intentions are good, we respond to try and fix or to try and help when sometimes people just need somebody to listen to. And it's a hard thing for somebody who is like an A-type personality to understand. This is my personality, which is very good in 99% of situations. You could make the argument that sometimes it's better to not fix it and to delegate it, but especially when it's somebody who you love, you want to do your best to fix that particular problem. But sometimes people don't need a fix, and sometimes people don't need an answer. They just need you to, how did you phrase it? I loved how you phrased it. You said, between hearing and truly understanding. Yeah. So sometimes you hear and you respond. Sometimes people just need you to understand and they don't need anything back. And I think that you have to know, it's not easy, but I think you have to know what the difference is between when somebody's asking for help and when someone's asking for like an empathetic ear.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I know exactly what you're going to say because that is how humans operate. Most people are not bad people. I'm saying that this is my personality, but I think a lot of people are like that. And you don't always have to solve everything. They just want somebody to support them while they're trying to figure it out themselves.
Yeah. Thank you for that. How important is alignment in values and vision, whether with your co-founder, customers, or life partner? And how do you check for that alignment over time?
So the easy answer is it's incredibly important. It's a very easy question. If you don't have alignment on values, I don't think there's any relationship that can survive any significant period of time without having alignment on values. In business, values could mean, okay, we should be doing business ethically. If somebody doesn't believe that they should be doing business ethically, you're not going to be in that business relationship for a long time. If I hire somebody who doesn't align with that, like we can't work together. That is a non-starter. Relationships too. Relationship values may be a little bit different, but they're not that different. What are our values on family? What are our values or our thoughts on even religion or education or kids? And some of these are more tangible, some of these are not so tangible, but I think that alignment on these big items and alignment on what you consider to be sacred, that transcends business or relationship. It's like a non-starter. How do you check back for alignment over time? I think you have to define things first. So I don't know if someone's core values truly change significantly. I say core values. So people's view on money or even family, maybe they can shift. But I don't think like core values, are you a good person? Do you respect people? These are things that I don't think shift over time. I think that when somebody's core values, like what they believe in their soul and their heart, I think those are what they carry on through life. Now, if you define values as views on different ideas, views on religion, views on politics, I don't consider those values. But that's my definition. So just, I want to make sure the definitions are clear. I think views can change over time. I think that most people do not check their alignment on their views of anything really for the majority of the relationship, because what happens in a relationship is you start dating and you're in the honeymoon period and the honeymoon phase, and then you have all these exciting life milestones, and each life milestone like reinforces your love for each other. So you have your first date, then you have engagement, then you have marriage, and you have kids, and then after that honeymoon period is over and there's no more milestones.
How long do you think the honeymoon phase lasts usually?
So I'm not the expert at this. There are biological milestones to a relationship. And it's not like guesswork. Like, the goal of a relationship is pair bonding, is to be fully infatuated with one another and be in love with one another for the rest of your life. However, the honeymoon phase, which is a phase in a relationship where there's infatuation, there's maybe a little bit of lust, there's certain chemicals that are actually firing at an increased rate, like certain hormones that are firing at an increased rate that make the honeymoon phase like definable from a scientific perspective. I was just listening to a podcast, and this is why I'm not that knowledgeable, but knowledgeable enough to be dangerous. So when you say honeymoon phase, there's a point in a relationship where eventually you will move away from this like hormone cocktail and move more towards pair bonding and being with that person and seeing them as more than just this infatuation, but somebody who you actually identify with as like family, as somebody who is like so close to you that it's the same as if they were like, obviously not from a romantic perspective, but from an attachment, like a brother or a parent, like that level of emotional connection. So the honeymoon phase, there will be a point where when you see the person the 300th time, you're not like getting this flood of hormones because you've seen them so many times. It doesn't mean you don't love them, but it's not like this lust that maybe you saw when you first saw them on Tinder or Hinge or something like that. The reason why, this is a total aside, but this is an interesting point. The reason why porn is so damaging is because it mimics that first stage of honeymoon hormone deployment repeatedly, and you never extend beyond that. So it's very damaging for your psyche, because all you're doing, you're seeing somebody, you're lusting after them, and your body doesn't really know that it's porn versus a girl that you're meeting for the first time on a date. It's just this hormone response repeatedly, but never progressing to the next level of relationship. So it's actually very damaging for people. This is something that I found very interesting. So yeah, honeymoon phase does end, but that's when like the true work begins. Now, to go back to the point that you had. The reason why I mention that is because after you go through all these phases, then that initial hormone reaction is gone. And I feel like people don't treat their marriage with the same seriousness as they would treat anything else, meaning they don't have regular dates, they don't block off time in their calendar, they don't set objectives together. You just coast through life for years. It could be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years. You coast. And when you coast and you don't communicate, like not, oh, how's your day going? It's, hey, like, how are we as a couple? Have we set time aside to sit down, to talk, to understand what our life goals are? Are we heading in the same direction? If you don't do that for 40 years, there's going to be some shifting.
Yeah.
And this is why more than 50% of all marriages end up in divorce. If we look at the data, over 50% means that less than half of people actually focus on alignment over time, which is why we have so much divorce. So I think that setting and blocking off time for relationship communication, for relationship alignment is very important. And it can look like a couple different things. I know for a fact, Mark Randolph, who's co-founder of Netflix, while he was building Netflix, every single Tuesday at 5 o'clock, it doesn't matter what fires were happening in Netflix, but every single Tuesday, he would go on date night with his wife. It doesn't matter. And this is while he's building Netflix, not a small company. So he would shut off from work, he would shut off his phone, go on date night. Purposeful, blocked off, distraction-free, fully present time with his wife. That to me is a perfect example of how do you build and maintain a relationship over time. It could be every week. If the founder of Netflix can do it, don't tell me with your tiny ass little business you can't do it too. Everyone can do it. If you want to take it a step further, every quarter, You can go on a retreat, to like a staycation, go to a hotel in the city. It's not really complicated shit.
Yeah.
But when you don't do it for 40 years, it compounds. Yeah. And that lack of alignment compounds, and that's where people end up divorcing. And my parents are no longer together. It's probably, they tried for sure. But growing up, I don't think they dated as much as they should have after being married, if that makes sense. They were focused on the kids. And kids are also a blessing, but kids can also be a distraction. Yeah. Because if you pour all of yourself into your kids, and every thing that you block off on your calendar is for your kids and not for you and your partner, you realize that the only thing you have in common at one point is your kids, because all of your other values, or whatever you want to call them, have drifted away. So I think that just having some sort of regular cadence where it's just you and your partner is very important. And that stops the alignment drift.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's very important. You could call it something as simple as just never stop dating, but whatever you call it, it's important.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay, so what practices help you consistently deliver on what you promise, both personally and professionally?
What practices help me deliver on what I promise? I think, very cliche, but like treating people the way that I want to be treated, I think is important. I think that managing expectations is very important. I think that saying no to a lot of opportunity that doesn't serve me frees up my time to overcommit and to over-deliver on things that actually matter to me and not chasing shiny objects. I think that's very important. I would say that those are pretty good practices. Those would be the main ones. I think that your ability to deliver on what you promise is directly tied to your bandwidth. Even if you have the best intentions in the world, if you commit to too many things, some things are going to start falling through the cracks. I think that most entrepreneurial people at some point take on too much, because it's good to take on a lot, especially when you're first starting. Like, for example, if people start asking you to come on the podcast, you say yes, you jump on podcasts. And all of a sudden you realize you're doing so many podcasts that the quality of the podcast that you're doing is diminishing because you're tired, and the quality of your own show is diminishing because you're tired, and then you're missing a call because you were so tired and you forgot to check your calendar, and you're like, okay, now I'm maxed out, now I'm burning out, now things are falling through the cracks, let me scale it back a little bit. So I think that knowing what's actually moving the needle, what's actually important, if you make a commitment to somebody, you're not overloading yourself so that you don't follow through on that commitment. I think that's very important. And that's in a business context. Business bleeds over into real life, into your home life. So if you are giving so much of yourself to your job or your business that when you get home you have nothing left to give your spouse or your partner, that's also not fair. So I don't like the term like work-life balance. I think like work-life has to be harmonized. It has to be, it's like almost like a fluid, because you can't say work-life balance because you have one tank of energy. So it's not like your energy resets at 5 or 6 o'clock when you go home. Whatever energy you spent through the day, that's it. So if you want to go out with your partner and you want to go on a date night and you want to be present, if you woke up at 4 in the morning and you went to the gym, nothing wrong with that, and you worked all day and then you went out for a drink after work, there's really nothing wrong with any of that except for the fact that you now have zero energy for your partner. So this is why it's so important to not just manage energy and fulfill your promises in a work context, but understand that what you commit to in a work context bleeds over into your personal life. So to manage energy after work is equally as important, because if you do not dedicate time and energy to the relationship that is outside of work, relationships only go two directions. They can either be improving and constantly being built upon, or they are deteriorating. So lack of focus and lack of care and lack of really just giving a fuck about a relationship, if you are not proactively putting energy towards it and you're just, oh, it's an afterthought, and you are treating your personal commitments with your partner, or whatever, they're there, I'll go to dinner, but I'm like really not there because I'm so tired from work, then your relationship just is deteriorating. And at some point, either your partner is going to be very depressed or very sad, or it's going to be over. So I think that a lot of this has to do with bandwidth. And if you are a high-performing individual, that's probably the one thing that you feel like you're invincible. and you'll take on too much, and then that's when you'll start under delivering on all of your commitments. Yeah, I think that's the best way that I think I can always fulfill what people ask of me.
It sounds like you have a lot of experience on this.
Yeah, I do, because I think that most, no, that's fair. It's a fair point. I do have a lot of experience with it because, like most high performing people, they give a lot of themselves to their work. Now, I'm young, I haven't destroyed a relationship yet, but I'm very aware that like I give a lot of my energy to my work. And I don't have kids yet. If I did, I've said this before, I don't want to work the way that I work now if I have kids.
Yeah.
Because I do have enough, I've managed my schedule, and there's been times when I was younger where I didn't manage it so well, and people that I was with at the time were not happy with me. But I've learned through relationships didn't work out, through things that it's because I was committing 150% of myself to my business and like 0% of the relationship. So now I have a good balance. I have a good work-life integration, and I am able to commit like energy to my better half. But if I had kids, there's nothing left for me now. But I'm aware of the fact that I have so many hours in a day and I have so much energy in a day, and I have to manage my energy to a greater degree when I do have kids because they deserve my energy. They don't deserve me showing up like a zombie after work. So I think that self-awareness is okay. I can be in a season of my life where I don't have kids, which I don't, so I can commit a little bit more to my work. But I am aware that when I have kids, work will be scaled back even further, which is fine for me. I don't mind that. But I take advantage of the season of the life that I'm in right now, and I know that season will eventually end. And I do believe that true success is never really about time management, it's about energy management. I'm a big believer in that. Yeah, I think that self-awareness is huge for this because I'm okay working a lot when I'm able to. But like I said, if you have kids or if you were single and you got into a relationship, that's a season of life shift that you have to be aware of. And what breaks relationships or creates horrible parent-child relationships or divorces is when they shift from one season of being single and working to another season of being in a relationship and working without changing their habits, so that they think they can add on a person or add on kids to their life with the same amount of energy and do the exact same amount of work per day. And that's not the case. One of my really good friends, he's a CEO of a publicly traded company, a very big company. And obviously you can only imagine like how much work he has to do. It's like nonstop, right? And he told me, like, Scott, the best thing you can do in life is have kids. I said, what, like, why do you say that? He said, because it forces you to prioritize. It forces you, like, you cannot do all the bullshit work that you want to do when you have kids. If you're a semi-decent human being, because you want to spend time with your kids. So what that forces you to do is it forces you to only work on the things that matter. When you have kids, when you have a partner, all of a sudden, if you're a good human being and you understand the person deserves a portion of your energy and your time, you can no longer do that. So now you're forced to only work on the things that truly matter. And you become much more effective. And that's the way you should look at life and work. And the issues, people run into issues when, like I said before, they add a partner into their life, they add kids into their life, and they don't accommodate for that extra energy expenditure. And that's when you see these broken relationships.
So what does consistency look like in your daily life and business model? And how do you sustain momentum when the initial excitement fades?
It's a good question. It's a good question because I hate the word motivation. I hate the concept of motivation. I can't stand it. Why I hate motivation is because motivation always fades. So when you start something new, like a little bit of, you get excited, you start it, and then whether or not, it's so funny how there's so many similarities between business and relationships, right? You start dating somebody, and then it goes from honeymoon phase into like serious pair bonding, dating, long-term relationship phase. You start a new company, super excited, all of a sudden it's not going as well as you thought, it's tough, you're not making any money.
It gets real.
It gets real. Yeah, I'm sure. So when you start a podcast, I'm sure you got super excited. You did your first couple episodes, you're like, oh, I didn't get a $250 million check from Spotify yet, what the fuck? I get it. Trust, I went through the same thing. But you realize real quick the motivation dies, right? And what keeps you consistent is all the buzzwords, right? Angela Duckworth speaks about grit or perseverance, or there's a whole bunch of buzzwords, but in my opinion, what allows you to be consistent is to forget the motivation and to build the systems and processes that make doing the work as easy as possible and as inevitable as possible. Meaning, I structure my day so I have time to record. I structure my day so I have time to do the tasks that are required to move the business forward, regardless of whether or not I have the motivation. If I want to go to the gym, I set my alarm. I'm out the door in 5 seconds. I want to go to the gym. I don't need motivation. I've woke up early to go to the gym. My bag's packed. It's the easiest decision to make possible. I always want to make the decision to do the right thing as easy as possible. If I want to work, I'm booking a calendar invite with the particular guest. I'm booking a calendar invite with my team to review the prep docs. I'm booking time on my calendar that makes me accountable to other people. So I make consistency inevitable because I'm creating and architecting a schedule and a calendar, and I'm creating accountability so that I have to show up. Like, it's too much work to not show up. It's easier for me to show up repeatedly. I think that is probably one of the most useful ideas when it comes to sticking in the game. I think I mentioned this before. Anything that you want to do, anything you want to build, it will take longer than you expect it to. So you have to find a way to stay in the game long enough for it to become successful. And some of these systems and processes, that's the way to stay in the game long enough. That's more of the tactical side of consistency. The mindset side of consistency, I've spoken about this several times, but it's a rule that I love. People call it different things. Some people say 15 years, some people say 10 years. Just make it easy, call it the 10-year rule. What is a 10-year rule? So outside of architecting your day so that to do the work it's easy and almost inevitable, the 10-year rule is a rule that is very simple. If you're going to start something, commit to it for 10 years. If you commit to it with the long term in mind, meaning that you mentally are preparing yourself, I'm going to do this podcast for 10 years. If you commit to 10 years, all of a sudden you realize how long it's going to take. But motivation is no longer a factor. You've already said, I know that if I commit to this thing for 10 years, I'll find a way to make it successful. I'm a smart person. I'm going to learn. I'm going to iterate. I'm going to improve. I'll find a way to make it successful. Also, when you commit to 10 years or something, you don't just commit mentally. You start to understand how you have to structure your life so that you can do the thing for 10 years. Why is this important? Because if you don't commit to something for a long term, what could happen, not always, but what could happen is you could say, hey, I want to start a podcast or I want to start a business. This happens a lot. I'm going to quit my job. I have 6 months of savings and hopefully I make it in 6 months. I'm telling you, don't do that. Say, if I want to commit to it for 10 years, I don't have 10 years of savings. So how would I do it if I want to commit to it for 10 years? What would I do? I still need to pay my rent for the next 10 years. So let me keep my job and let me work on my business or my startup or my podcast at night or on the weekends, because now I can afford rent. And I basically de-stressed and de-risked and removed all the friction in creating this thing for an unreasonable extended period of time. And doing that dramatically increases your chances of success, because now you've structured your life so that you can stick with it for years. And if you stick with anything for years, there are very few ways to screw it up. If you podcast for the next 10 to 15 years, you will find a way to make more money than 99.999% of podcasters. You'll maybe not be Joe Rogan, but you'll be able to afford yourself a life doing this. So the daily structuring your calendar so that showing up is inevitable, plus the long-term vision, that's how I maintain and ensure consistency. And it applies for podcasting, it applies for relationship, it applies for anything really. Maybe tweak it a little bit for relationships, but it applies for anything.
Okay. So let's just say conflict is inevitable. So
It is, yes.
how do you approach disagreement or breakdown, whether it's with a client, a partner, or someone you love?
Well, so conflict is inevitable. I think that a lot of it goes back to hearing and communication and removing emotion and understanding what the actual, being empathetic enough to understand what the person actually wants to get out of this. I think that when I get bad news, I never respond in the moment. I always force myself to go do some sort of physical activity and remove myself. So usually it's like in the form of an email or a call or whatever, or a text. Bad news comes everywhere, whatever. You get something that's like emotionally charging you. My strategy is to walk away, never respond, go work out, go for a walk, go for a run, go do meditate. I don't care. I don't really meditate, but do whatever you want. And then when you go through this process, then all of a sudden you can come back. You've removed the emotion from it because you've done some physical activity. It actually helps you come up with some creative solutions, and you can approach the conflict in a much more level-headed, outcome-based manner, like a positive outcome from this conflict. And I think that's a very useful skill. And that could be with a partner, that could be with a client. You have to find a way to approach the conflict through a resolution mindset versus a reactive emotional mindset. That's how I at least end up fixing most of my conflicts and issues. And if a quick physical activity is not enough, you can sleep on it and answer or respond the next day. That's also a strategy. And if the conflict is really bad, then I would say that a really helpful idea, it's a Tim Ferriss idea called fear setting. And fear setting is imagining the worst possible outcome from whatever's happening, and then realizing that worst possible outcome has a 99% chance of not happening. And because usually when there's conflict, right, you're scared of the worst possible case scenario.
So what would be like the worst possible outcome that you would have?
Think about, okay, so in a relationship, it could be divorce, breakup. That would be, I'm assuming for most people, that's the worst possible outcome. In business, you think about it like this. So say a client says, hey, results weren't what we were expecting. We'd like to cancel the contract. Okay, so worst possible outcome. Really worst possible outcome would be you lose out on the money. They talk shit about you online. Nobody wants to do business with you anymore. Your revenues go to zero. You have no more money coming in. You can't find a job. You're homeless. But really, you have to think for a second, why am I actually stressed about this? Why am I actually stressed about this? Because when you laugh, you realize how ridiculous that sounds. And then you start to realize, okay, that's probably not going to happen. Probably all that's going to happen is this customer is going to walk away, and there's even a chance that they could come back in the future. And maybe I miss out on the revenue, but are they really going to be talking shit about me online to the point where no one else is ever going to do business? No, that's not real life. So when you fear set, this is the whole point of fear setting, by the way. You go to the worst possible scenario, you realize that it's ridiculous, you realize that you're acting out of emotion, and then you realize that the outcome is probably going to be like a fraction of the worst possible case. And then all of a sudden that calms you down, calms your nervous system down, and you can approach the conflict with a level head, because you realize that the reason why you were ridiculous and angry in the first place, you don't even realize, but there was like this idea in your subconscious that will never ever happen. So then you're like, I don't even know why I'm so mad. It's usually subconscious. It could be because of past trauma. It could be because of past bad experiences. It could be because of inputs that we don't even realize are affecting us. So when you fear set, then you realize that your response to the conflict is irrational. And when your brain understands that, then it can approach the conflict rationally, which is really what you have to do.
So speaking of like past traumas, do you think that, just like an opinion, do you think that you have any relation to like people we're attracted to?
Oh, I would say yes. Because I think past traumas, I think generational trauma can impact us. But just say in our lifetime, past trauma, I think, impacts almost everything we do. Past trauma can impact how you react in a certain situation. It can impact who you're attracted to. It can impact, even on a physical level. There's a doctor I interviewed who helps people deal with past trauma, childhood trauma. And he first discovered the power of trauma healing. And let me try and remember the story correctly. I hope I don't butcher some of the details. His wife had this horrible medical condition, but it was triggered by a certain event. I think, if I remember correctly, she was like chastised by a teacher when she was very young. Some teacher said something like really horrible to her, and that imprinted in her subconscious. And then as she grows up, whenever she feels like she's being chastised in the same way, her body has like this physical reaction because and she has no idea why. She doesn't even remember what happened as a child. So the way that I understand trauma is that trauma runs subconsciously and impacts like your subconscious operating system. So you don't even know that it's running, but all your traumas from your childhood and every trauma that you've ever experienced, a lot of them from your childhood, because that's when your subconscious is basically formed, it's always running. And if the traumas are significant enough, they can lead to like serious physical conditions like autoimmune disease, like real issues. And what this doctor's work was, he proved through a variety of his patients that if you heal past traumas, like stage fright would be gone, or ability to date somebody and not cheat would be gone, or ability to perform better at work and make smarter business, or even heal like autoimmune physical maladies and conditions would be gone. So traumas impact everything because they're always running, even if we're not aware of them. Yes, to answer your question, I can only, if it impacts everything else that he's seen with his patients, I'm sure it impacts the health of your relationship, whether or not somebody wants to settle down, whether or not somebody wants to stay single till they're 50 and just go out and party, whether or not somebody cheats, whether or not somebody's faithful, who they're attracted to. For sure it does. For sure it does. And I bet we're mostly not even aware of it. That's why people go to therapy. That's why people work with different people to uncover past trauma. But yes, I'm almost positive that it impacts who we're attracted to, who we stay with, all of that.
It's interesting.
Let me show you. I'm gonna get the guy's name 1 second, because I want people to, because his work is good, and I think that's a rabbit hole people should go down if they are dealing with shit in their life that doesn't quite make sense. I'm serious. But yeah, so it's Dr. Don Wood. He's the guy that did a lot of this research, and I think that's a useful thing for people to go discover and do a little bit of inner work.
Dr. Don Wood.
Yeah, he's based in Orlando.
Don Wood. Okay.
He's like a trauma expert.
Like Orlando, Florida.
His name was Don Wood.
We'll put a link to Dr. Don Wood and Scott's episode later on. So, how do you build adaptability into your business model or relationship framework?
I think this may be a little bit different for both. So in business, I'm studying, I'm learning, I'm evolving. I'm never really married to what I've done. I'm always focused on what performs the best. So for content, I'm always studying different types of content. I'll always try and include new ideas. I'll try and do new show formats. I'll try new types of content on my socials. I'll write a newsletter on a different topic or in a new format, or maybe I'll do, as opposed to a guest interview, like I'll do a solo show, or as opposed to a solo show, I'll do a round table, or maybe if I speak on stage at an event, I'll put that on my podcast and on my YouTube and see how it performs. Like I'm always testing. Very adaptable. I think that, listen, if you're building a business, you have to learn how to disrupt yourself before someone else does. So what's worked a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't care how well it's worked, there will be a point when it stops working. It's not a maybe, it's a when. There's always going to be required disruption. It just is a matter of whether or not you're going to do it to yourself or someone else is going to disrupt you. Even the businesses that work the best in the world, you know, these cliche examples like Blockbuster, Netflix, like taxi cab industry, Uber, hotel industry, Airbnb. Nobody thought taxis were going to be disrupted. Nobody thought hotels were going to be disrupted. Nobody thought Blockbuster would be disrupted. Now we have Google that is being slightly disrupted by ChatGPT, not significantly, but starting to.
Yeah.
So it's never a matter of if, it's always a matter of when. And I think that when you go into business with that mindset, you're constantly looking for what's next, or how do we do things differently, or how do we serve customers differently, or how do I create content that resonates better, or create content that's never been done before. You're always looking, always scanning studying. The best entrepreneurs, the best creators, they know so much about their industry. Like, it's almost crazy how much they know about their industry. This is how you can tell how long somebody's been in their industry, because they'll talk about shit that everyone else finds super boring, but to them, this is a make or break it fact. I'll give you an example of how in the weeds I am on podcasting, and you may think this is crazy. It's something that I think is useful. To everybody else, I probably sound like a lunatic. So when I prep for an interview, before I interview somebody, I'll always listen to a podcast that they do. And I was talking about this the other night. This is my like one little weird nerdy podcasting that I do. I'll listen to them interview so I can understand how they speak and their inflection and their tonality and when they pause or when they ramble, because I want to be prepared going to the interview to understand that if they stop for a second in the middle of a sentence, are they done with that sentence? Or are they thinking and they take awkward 2-second long pauses while they're speaking and then they continue on so I don't interrupt them? You laugh, but that is like super granular. So anybody who's an operator, who's an entrepreneur, who's a creator, who's good, they are that granular. I don't care what you're building. The best ones know that shit. Not that in particular, but they know something as weird about their industry. So that's how you stay adaptable. You study all the time and disrupt yourself. How do you stay adaptable in a relationship? You're not going to study your partner like a weirdo. You're going to communicate. You're going to communicate with your partner all the time. I think it goes back to communication. And you're going to understand your values, your views, your feelings, your goals, life goals, business goals, family goals, if they're aligned. And then if they're not, I think that it's easier to have conversations when you're constantly communicating, because then to adapt doesn't feel like you're all the way over here and I thought you were like, you felt this way about this thing 30 years ago, and then oh my God, that's not a good place to be in, because then it's very difficult to adapt, right? Yeah. If you're a little bit more in touch and communicate a little bit more often, then that's when you can adapt to small little changes in what that person believes in, and it's not as traumatic to you. I think that, for example, say I'll give you a very practical example. So let's say a husband and wife are both working 9-to-5 jobs, okay? And the husband has always wanted to start a business, or the wife has always wanted to start a business, doesn't really matter. And two scenarios. Scenario one, just say the husband, pretend that's me. I want to start a business, and I never communicate it to my wife. I never tell her that I want to start a business. And then one day, I'm quitting my job, I'm starting a business. She's like, what the are you talking about? You're starting a business. We have mortgage, we have kids. What do you mean you're starting a business? It's hard for her to adapt to the reality that's been in my head for a long time. Now say we do what Mark Randolph was talking about and go on Tuesday date night every Tuesday and we talk. And for the past 5 years, I've been like, I want to start a business. And then she said, okay. So like, how do we do this? What are the financials? Like, how much money do I have to make to cover your ass if it's not working? These are the conversations we have. So by the time I start a business, we've already adapted, we've grown together. Yeah. And I think that's why it goes back to communication. That's why it's so important. You're growing together. Like the person that you start dating and then eventually marrying is never going to be the same person over the course of your relationship. They will always change their views and they'll grow and they'll evolve. And that's a good thing. You're supposed to grow. Like you're a fucking human. If you were the same person you were when you were like 18, that'd be a really sad existence. But you grow, you evolve, your views change, you live, you experience stuff, and eventually you'll end up, hopefully, growing together. And that is where you truly pair bond and truly build a strong relationship, when you grow together. But you can only grow together if you know the direction that you're both moving in. If you don't know where you're moving, then that's when you grow apart, and that's when you have to worry about adapting to something else. But if you communicate, you grow together, I don't think you have to worry about adapting, because you always understood the journey that you're on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, actually. Like,
thank you.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of relationship podcasts. I'm just like riffing on stuff that I believe in. So I'm glad it resonates.
That's pretty deep. And
I guess I do more than just podcasts, but
I think it's great that it relates also to like the business stuff that you're working on as well.
Oh, this is by the way, you asked about business adaptability, and I told you a couple ideas I have about that. But in terms of business partner, the business partner is the same idea as a romantic partner in terms of constantly communicating and making sure that you are aiming towards the same North Star. And you should be growing together towards that North Star. Again, not romantically. Don't call HR. Don't be doing weird shit with your business partner if you don't want to. But the point is, you should be going towards the same North Star, and you cannot be going on that journey together if you never communicate. And I think that, again, why do we not communicate? I think because we have this false perception that once we know somebody, that's who they'll always be, business or romantic, right? That's who they'll always be. And that's categorically false. That is absolutely false. Business partner or romantic partner will always be growing because humans grow and they change and they evolve. So know that, and then again, set yourself up for success by blocking off time to have conversations about, yo, how's this relationship going? Yo, how's this business going? Are you happy with where we're going? Are you happy with how we're doing things? Are you happy with the amount of date nights? Are you happy that we're still trying to have kids? Have these conversations, and then all of a sudden life gets way easier. It's only when you don't communicate, when shit really hits the fan.
Great points. Successful business models deliver ongoing value to all parties. How do you assess whether your relationships, business or personal, are truly reciprocal?
The way that I look at reciprocal relationships is if you both, I'm not a fan of when people say, let's go 50-50, not in terms of paying for dinner, like in terms of giving energy to a relationship. I also don't think that, listen, I also pay for dinners, but I think that when you think about giving 50% of yourself to somebody, there's always a chance that you come up short, and then that's when relationships start to deteriorate. I think that both people should give over 100% of themselves to their partner. And when you both give 110%, then you both think you're giving more than the other person, but ultimately that's what builds a happy relationship. So I think going above and beyond in anything, easier said than done sometimes, by the way, but also that accounts for days when somebody can't give 110%. There are days when life happens and you are stressed, you are tired, you're sick, you're beat down, shit happens. And in those moments, you want your partner to be giving as much as possible to support you, but know that the second like you're back up and running and life's going good for you, then you're giving 110% for when your partner can't show up. So if you're both giving 110% at the same time, great. On the off chance something doesn't work out, then the partner has the other partner covered. But I think that's how I look at reciprocal relationships.
What's your take on boundaries? Like, how do you protect your energy while still giving generously?
I say no to things that are not serving. It's hard to say. Okay, I say no to things that don't serve me, and not in a selfish way. If I take on too many projects or too many tasks, I can't give my energy. And like your question before about committing and delivering and to people that you make promises to, if you say yes to too much, then you're basically saying, I'm going to give a mediocre effort towards everything. I say no to things that don't serve me, so I can give 110% to the business partners, customers, relationships, spouse, partner, because if you do say yes to everything, then you water yourself down. But yeah, I think that saying no is a superpower. I think that more people should be comfortable saying no. I think that they should also know what their North Star or their business objective is and focus on the highest value tasks that help accomplish that business objective. And when you're clear on what your business objective is, then it's a lot easier to say no to things that don't serve that. I think that when people are not clear on what they want to achieve, they start saying yes to every opportunity. Opportunities are great, but if you say yes to everything, then you're really not serving yourself and you're not serving the people that count on you. So I think that's saying no is probably the biggest, most important thing that people have to be comfortable with to set proper boundaries.
Do you think that it took a while
Oh yeah,
for you to
be able to say
understand?
no?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it's very uncomfortable to say no. It's exceptionally uncomfortable. But then there's the cliche saying, right? Everything that you want is on the other side of an uncomfortable, difficult conversation. And that's very true. It's very true. And I would say saying no, which is a complete sentence, as awkward as it can be, is an uncomfortable conversation. So I think that maybe if you practice it a little bit more, if you assert that you cannot commit to something because it doesn't serve you, and a lot of people are people pleasers and they're very uncomfortable doing that, but this is a requirement to get to where you want to go. This is a requirement to have the life that you want to live. You have to be comfortable saying no. So maybe you try it in low risk environments if possible. If you want to practice saying no, go walk down the middle of a downtown street and someone's going to come up to you and ask you to sign us a donation pledge or ask to go support a cause. And some of the causes are great. That's not the point. Practice saying no to people that come into your world. I mean, if somebody, I'm trying to think of other examples. I just say that example because I always walk through. There's this, so I walk, it's so funny. I walk to the gym every day or whenever I go, and my path to the gym is through this part of Miami where there's always like somebody fundraising for something. These are like nonprofits that are always trying to raise money.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with giving money to a nonprofit, obviously. But every single day, I would have no money left. It's the same route every single day. Like I recognize the people and they, for some reason, never recognize me, even though I've talked to them 1,000 times. So I'm just telling you, in that situation, I have to practice saying no all the time.
Yeah.
And no can be like a complete sentence.
Yeah.
Now, there's other ways that you can practice this. If you really feel like giving to nonprofits, if you get email requests for things, say, no, I'm sorry, I can't commit to that.
Yeah.
That's it. You don't even have to ghost. If you go through your inbox right now, or you go through your text messages, you are going to have several opportunities, probably hundreds of opportunities, to not ghost people, but to respectfully say no to somebody. Now, that no, they might respond back. Why? You don't have to answer. You gave your answer. But I'm just saying that if you are not good at saying no to people, find a way to, with very low risk, start to get comfortable saying no, so that when something which seems like a fun opportunity and it's good but not great, those are the most important things to say no to. So it's a little bit about your own confidence and conviction, and also it's a little bit about not chasing the shiny object. Because sometimes you don't even want to say no to some of this stuff, but it doesn't serve you. You get asked to speak on stage. Maybe at this point in your career it serves you, but okay, think about it. If I am going to go speak on stage and maybe it's somewhere in Europe and it's going to be like a 7-8 hour flight and I'm going to get jet lag and I'm going to be at the conference for 3 days and I'm going to come back 4 or 5 days plus jet lag, plus while you're there, you're not getting a lot of work done. You're on hotel Wi-Fi. You can't get the same amount of work done as at home. Your diet's not going to be great. You may get a cold sometimes when you travel, whatever. I'm saying,
I'm already saying no.
you're okay, but some people,
I'm already saying
some people wouldn't say no to that, and some people constantly, because it's a good opportunity, but it's not great. I think it's a Steve Jobs quote, and I'm butchering it, but basically the idea is true success is saying no to the good ideas in pursuit of the great ideas. I think that's Steve Jobs, but I'm butchering this quote. Warren Buffett also has a story about one of his pilots asked him how to be successful. And he said, write down 25 things that you want to achieve on a piece of paper. And the pilot writes down 25 things. And he says, circle the top 5 priorities.
I think I've heard that one.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
And the pilot circles the top 5. And Warren Buffett's like, okay, that's what you go do. And the pilot, and it was his private pilot, and the pilot says, what about the other 20 things? And Warren Buffett says, those are the things that are the most dangerous because you want to do them, but they're not actually serving your goals. So those are the things that you have to adamantly stay away from.
Yeah.
Never talk about, never touch, never even think about doing those other 20 things until the first 5 are fully completed. Because it isn't the things that you don't want to do that usually sidetrack you. It's usually the things that seem like fun, seem like a great opportunity, but they're not the opportunity. Those are the things that are the most insidious because they masquerade as good opportunities, but they're not actually in line with what you want to achieve. So that speaking example is a good one. A lot of people want to speak on stage. It's great. I get some great footage, whatever. But is it actually serving what I'm working on right now? And it's very hard. It's very hard to say no to things like that. But once you start, you'll notice that you'll free up time and resources for the things, the people that actually matter. And if you do this exercise enough, the benefits of saying no will make it a lot easier because you'll see what happens on the other side of saying no. But that would be, yeah, that would be my best advice on just prioritization. But
Thank you for joining us.
thank you. Thank you for having me on. These are good questions. These went deep. They're very good. They were very good. Usually people just ask me how to build a podcast. So I love it. This is really good questions. Thank you for having me on.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can support our cause by going to buymeacoffee.com/Anna Yoo. That's YOO. More support means more episodes. The link is in the episode description. Also, don't forget to visit our Instagram page for exclusive behind-the-scenes content at It Starts With You. And remember, it starts with you.